Hey, what is up, everybody in Headhunters Live Land? This is David Stephen Patterson. People just call me DSP, and we're here today with my beautiful co-host right over here, Mr. Chris Wessel. What's going on, Chris?
Another day in recruiting. Can't complain.
Another day, another dollar.
More stuff going right than wrong. That's how I look at it.
The hard-earned dollar. Today we have a great show. We have Kent Depwe. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Kent is in the green room right now, and I'm sure he will correct me as soon as he comes on if I'm mispronouncing it. But a little bit of his claim to fame, though, is he went from zero. We're talking like zero as in a rookie zero, nothing, nada, zilch, and ended up I think within about a year or 2 years building $1 million desk from the ground up. So we're going to dive into that and talk to him about his strategies, what he did, and yeah. But before we do so, let's bring out our beautiful sponsors before we bring him on. Now, I will say, if, by the way, if you're watching this live, make sure you comment live in the comments down below. If you're watching the replay, comment replay. We want to know who is watching this, and make sure you share the show with everybody that you know. Now, if you are on the direct hire side of things, you want to get into contract staffing, staff augmentation, fraction, whatever you want to call it, because you want to smooth out your revenue instead of having these big peaks and valleys of billing. But you don't want to get hung up on works comp and insurance and contracts, and of course the payroll funding. So if you need a back office staffing or back office provider, check out backofficenow.com. So back office staffing solutions will basically take over the entire process on actually running your contractors, funding their payroll, collecting, invoicing, the whole nine. We're talking workers' comp, insurance, the whole thing, at a rate that you will not find a better one out there in the industry. So go to backofficenow.com. I know, Chris, you are a customer as well.
Yep, absolutely. As a solo recruiter who just does direct hires for the most part, it's a great resource. I had a firm for 10 years where I did, temp staffing, funding, payroll, all that stuff, the usual ways. And this is much better.
Much better. So check them out. Go to backofficenow.com. In addition, many of you know I run a company called the Digital Headhunter. We help search firms deploy sales and marketing systems. We have worked with over 600 firms all over the world on 6 continents. We install the outbound prospecting system as well as the content system, training how to use it, etc. So go to realdsp.me/system. I have a 14-minute video on that page detailing exactly what we build, why it works, with testimonials and case studies. So check that out. All right, so let's bring on the man of the hour, Mr. Kent Depwe. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Kent, welcome. So the question is, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
No, I won't hold it against you because I don't think anyone has ever got it on the first try, but it's actually Depwe.
Depwe?
Yeah. Quite confusing and unique, but yeah, don't hold it against you. No one gets on the first try.
All right, fair enough. All right. Well, Kent, great to have you on here. For the benefit of our audience who may not have heard of you yet, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so quick, I guess, elevator pitch intro. 29 years old, based here in Austin, Texas. Been in recruitment ever since I got out of college, so it's been, come up on 7 years now. I think like 6.5 or something. Full desk recruiter, basically all perm, and I do specialize, especially in the startup space, and lean a little bit more executive search, but kind of do everything. And yeah, as you said earlier, claim to fame, which apparently is pretty rare in this space, is I built a $1 million desk, full desk perm after splits in my second full year. So I started in 2019. 2020 was my first full year, fun year in recruitment for people who are in this space that year. Then 2021, I built about $1 million full desk perm. Not a one-trick pony though. I've done it several times since then. So built $1 million 2021, did 1.1 million in 2022, then left and basically went on my own in 2023, and then in 2025 I hit $1 million again. And then this year we're honestly looking pretty good for it. So multi-time $1 million biller, all things full desk perm.
And you're with Tima now, right?
Yeah, which I say it's funny. Tima's a bit complicated. I guess the easiest way I can describe it is, say on a scale of 1 to 10, say a 10 is a normal W-2 agency, base salary, benefits, all that good stuff. And then a 1 is starting up by yourself. Tima's basically like a 5, like it's basically somewhere in between. because it's commission only. Like you run your own desk. I'm an LLC. Like no manager, no hours. Like I'm doing my own thing. Team is basically just kind of for like back office support and like community. Basically, whenever I get too many jobs and I need help on the recruitment side, there's 250 other people at Team Up just like me that I can basically pull in and get easy help and do split deals and with whatnot.
All right, so let me ask you this: so $1 million. Now, before we get in, obviously, $1 million doing direct hire is a lot different than doing $1 million in contract staffing. So,
very different.
Was it direct hire? You did it in?
All direct hire, and it's after splits too. So if I did do a split deal, like someone filled it for me, say it was a $40K deal, then I'll get $20K.
So the cash in is all you're counting, right?
Yeah, cash in and not total. So if I did the full desk deal and it was a $50K fee, that'd be all counted towards me. But if someone else filled it, but it was my client, then I get half of that. So just total fees would probably be like 1.6 or something.
So David, he probably did it without even, he said that he was like, I don't, apparently that's a big deal. Like, I guess maybe when he came in, he just figured that's what he was supposed to do. And like, so he's just like, I guess.
Maybe way to look at it. Yeah.
Was I not supposed to bill $1 million? Like, was that a thing? Like,
oh, my bad.
Yeah, I was quite surprised, but apparently it didn't happen very much. My CEO was like, yeah, I've never seen anyone take quite the same path as you, but here we are. So.
Well, it's stolen, man, because most people, I shouldn't say most, but I've seen a lot of $1 million billers that fudge numbers. They look at the contract staffing billing, for example, or they don't count their splits. So with that said, so I guess let's set the scenario here. What's your niche?
So I think this is honestly one of my secrets is I don't niche down. I feel like that's basically directly against the grain of traditional recruitment advice. It's like, oh, go an inch wide, a mile deep. I kind of started doing that, and then I'm like, this is stupid. I think it leads to inconsistent months and inconsistent years if you go like an inch wide, a mile deep. I try to be somewhat of a generalist. I'd say like my specialty is startups. So it's like, seed, Series A, Series B companies. Like that's what I specialize in. But as far as like job titles and verticals, I basically do everything from GTM, sales, marketing, engineering. I just got a CFO job today. COO. So basically I try to be like a one-stop shop for my clients where, okay, I need a CTO. Perfect. Okay. Now we need an engineering team. Great. Now that's done. Okay. The product's built. Now we need a sales team. Now we need a marketing team. Now they go to me for that as well. And I basically go from the exact down through it.
Are these engaged searches or like, are they just exclusive contingency or like, how do you structure
Sometimes, like I have a client right now that he's paid me a bunch of money and they're like, hey, Ken, these fees are getting expensive. Like, how can we do something? And so they'll pay me like $20K a month for like all like unlimited searches. That's after I've built a lot of trust. But typically they start off exclusive contingent.
Right. So you do have a niche in a way. It's not like a function niche where you place list people or all engineers, but you work with startups, and that I guess in that sense,
you help startups build, and
exactly. So I guess my niche vertical would be startups, but as far as like positions, like some people, I swear I've heard people that they'll like the only roles I do is C# engineers, and that's it. I'm like, that is so dumb. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Or even expand it outside that, like maybe just engineering. Even then, like that's just too niche for me. Where a good example is 2022, the engineering, and honestly right now too, but 2022, the engineering market was super, super hot. And so if your niche was engineering, you probably had a great year. But then 2023, the pendulum swung the other way, and then software engineers were getting laid off. No one wanted them. And so if you just stuck to that niche, you probably had a shit year in 2023. Comparatively, in 2023, sales and marketing was really, really hot. And so I basically pivoted from engineering to sales and marketing, and I had a great year in 2023. I think I did like 700K. Where if I just stuck to software engineering, as traditional recruitment advice would tell me, I probably would have built like 200K, if that. Like you couldn't buy a software engineering job in 2023. Is a lot different market.
So what changed for you? 'Cause I mean, you started off again. You didn't start off as a $1 million producer, right? So you started off at zero as a rookie, didn't know anything, came in and got trained on the business. Like what? But at a certain point, with these really big desks, there's like a turning point. Either they tap into a segment, or they find like the perfect client, or whatever happens to be. But was there like a pivot in your first, like, say, year or two that really kind of led you to where you're at right now? Like, and what was that?
I mean, I guess the most like obvious pivot is I got 3 amazing clients that got me to the millions. Like those were like the obvious pivots. I would say kind of deeper than that, I guess something maybe more valuable is honestly just, how do I word this? I feel like just really mastering the fundamentals, which in a way, like basically my first full year in recruitment was in 2020, which is probably the hardest recruitment market we will see for the next 100 years, hopefully. Like extremely, extremely tough. And I feel like in that year, I think I only billed like 50K that year. No, sorry, I only billed 200K that year and made like 50K, like nothing, but just because it was a tough market. But that market kind of forced you to get really, really good on the fundamentals of what recruitment is, and also just getting like a really high baseline of activity of what it takes to win clients and do deals. And so I kind of built that foundation in 2020. It was so difficult. So I almost thought like, this is what normal is. Like, damn, this is tough. Yeah. And then 2021 market picked up a lot, and I kept doing the same amount of work in the same volume, but the market was hotter. And so I went from billing 200K to $1 million in a year. And then 2022, same thing, 1.1 million that year.
So if that's the case, if you focus on if you're forced to focus on the fundamentals, what are those fundamentals? Because I know for a lot of recruiters, they may hear that, and some recruiters think cold calling. Some recruiters think, yeah. So when you talk about fundamentals, like, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, good question. I feel like fundamentals, one is I see as just base activity, and also consistency. I feel like this is probably the two things a lot of people miss. Is they underestimate how much activity you need to do to bill $1 million, which is a lot. And it's not for everyone, frankly. Like, if everyone doesn't need to be a $1 million biller, like, you can do half this activity and bill 500K and still be quite fine. But just kind of establishing that baseline activity of, okay, I'm gonna make this many reference calls this week, this many cold calls, which I don't do anymore, but I did, this many cold calls, this many spec emails. And then once you get jobs, a really important metric is, okay, how many really good candidates are you sending per week? I try to be no less than 15. I would get to like 25 or 30 sometimes. So basically just always sending 15 candidates, 3 per day, to all of your different jobs. If you do that over a long period of time, it's almost impossible not to do a lot of deals. The problem people have is maybe they do that for 1 week, but then the next week their activity is nothing. And recruitment's one of those things that builds on itself. Like, what I build this month is from the activities I did 1, 2, 3 months ago. Right. And so if you start really having these dips in activity, then you're screwing yourself later. Where if you're always consistent, no matter what, I always like to say, if you're having the best week of your life, you're the worst week of your life, no matter what, you're doing the same baseline activity over a long period of time. It's really hard not to win. Like, the math comes back to you.
Quick question on that point, right? Because I know some recruiters would potentially fixate on, like, okay, I'm doing the activities, I'm doing the send outs, I'm doing whatever, but like, there's another layer there too, right? Like, how are you qualifying clients to make sure that they're worth the time, right? Because you could be doing 3 send outs a day, right? You could be chucking them into a black hole. So like, just the raw effort, I mean, that's certainly part of it.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was kind of my next point is, you have to, like, if you have a bunch of like C, D tier clients, like, they're not that urgent, they're not paying that well, they don't really value you, they're kind of just tire kickers, like, they're not serious about hiring. You can work as much as you want, but you won't do deals there. And so the other aspect is getting good A tier clients. And I find you can either get really lucky, but that almost happens to no one. What you have to do is just get a big inflow of clients coming into you, because say you only win 1 client per quarter, you're kind of in this like scarcity mindset of like, damn, I don't have any clients. So like, anything that comes your way, you're going to take it, even if it's bad. But when I'm doing BD, I could probably win 10 clients a month if I wanted to. But I haven't done that in a while because I'm already like up to here in jobs. Right. But if you have that many clients coming in, now you're kind of in an abundance mindset of like, I have so many different clients. And if you kind of get, I guess, bad signals and red flags from a client, like, hey, these guys look like tire kickers, like, I don't think it's very good. Now you have the power to basically say no and only take on the good ones.
Yeah.
So how do you get there? Because I think for a lot of recruiters hearing, I can get 10 clients this month, and to say that as a kind of a throwaway line, it sounds great, but for a lot of recruiters listening, they're like, well, how in the world can you get that many clients? Because I wouldn't say it's a tough market, but there's so much competition out there. Everybody's emailing, everybody's doing linked automations, and I imagine there's a fair amount of people calling as well. So there's a lot of noise, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you break through and get those clients? There's a lot of clients to get in a month, right?
Good question. This is probably one of the biggest pieces of sauce I'll drop on this podcast. I feel like that's probably the most common question I get asked is, how do you win new clients? Like, that's probably the most, like, basically a lot of recruiters' problems. And if you don't win new clients, like, you're screwed, right? There's no one's going to pay you. You're going to have a bad year if you can't win a lot of new clients. And I find a lot of recruiters go about winning new business the wrong way. And I think there's decently traditional advice too, where they say, okay, either whether it's cold calls or specs or LinkedIn or whatever, they basically recruiters go in selling themselves. Like, hey, I'm a recruiter. I specialize in this space. Like, they just talk about me. And the metaphor I like to use is that's like the complete opposite of sales, where, you know, whenever you buy a plane ticket to Cabo, you're not buying the plane ticket. You're buying what that plane ticket gives you, a vacation at a beautiful place like Cabo. The same thing is true with hiring managers. Hiring managers have a problem. They cannot find good candidates for their job. They don't need a recruiter. They need a candidate. Of course, a recruiter gets them a candidate, but that's not really how they're thinking. They need a candidate. And so if you go and approach them, cold calling, email, whatever it is, saying, I specialize in this space, I'm a recruiter, you should use me. Like, sure, you'll get some, but the hit rate is so much lower to where if you went to them with a candidate solving their problem, hey, I'm a recruiter, but here's this candidate that looks perfect for your job. Here's 4 bullet points why they're amazing. Imagine you're a hiring manager and someone's breathing down your neck to say, hey, you got to grow your team. Next thing you know, a perfect candidate pops in your inbox. You're going to respond to that. So my response rate's probably massively above industry standard because I kind of lead with a really good candidate rather than myself.
Well, I will say this: even if they don't need somebody at that time, what happens a lot of these NPCs? And I agree with you. I love NPCs as well, but the fact that everybody's saying the exact same thing. Hey, look at me. Versus if you send up quality candidates, even if they don't need that candidate right then at the time, they may not even reply because they don't want to get involved in a sales conversation and then a rebuttal. They just put off in a folder, but they remember you as always sending good quality candidites. So
and that's a big thing too. I almost, the amount of times I've placed the candidate that I originally sent, very rare, like 5% of the time, if that. Almost always it's, damn, this candidate's really good. Like, let's have like really good tasting candidates. He has a really good network. And so we'll say, hey, this candidate looks great. Let's hop on a call. Like, basically my entire point of cold calling, emailing, NPCing is not to place the candidate in an interview. It's just to get a phone call or a video call or just basically a client intake call. And what you do from there is, okay, they usually respond like, hey, this candidate looks good. Like, what's their details? Okay, let's hop on a call. I'll tell you all about them. And then in that call, usually there's something off, like, okay, either the candidate is, you know, off in some way in terms of their skill set, maybe they're too expensive, like there's something off. And so, yes, that candidate you sent is right, but then you do an intake call and then you say, okay, great, this candidate's not right, but here's what you're looking for. Perfect. Now I'll start a custom search. Now you just got a new client. And so that's kind of like the point of the NPCing and all this outreach isn't to place the candidate, it's just to get meetings essentially.
And then they figure like, okay, this guy gets it. Right. Exactly. Because like the amount of times I've had like a search where someone was like, I had a recruiter working on this for 4 months and they didn't come up with shit, blah, blah, blah. And then like a couple of weeks in, I'm like, hey, here's a couple of people I have a chat with. And they're like, it's like, oh yeah, like this is what I'm looking for. And like I'll talk to them and they'll be like, oh, I see why you sent them, pretty close, but like, you know, we're almost there. Right. So if they see that versus the shit that gets thrown at them, if they see something where they're like, okay, this Kent guy might not exactly understand every single thing we need, but he's like in the ballpark enough that he probably can do this for us.
It is super important, the NPCs you send. If you send a bad NPC, like you're even more screwed than if you went in if you're a recruiter. So the very important part is find someone that's like amazing on paper. Like one of my engineering example, this guy's a perfect spec because he's super passive. So he's kind of like always available for me to NPC. But he's got like a PhD in computer science from MIT. And then worked at Airbnb and Snap, which are like super notorious for great engineering talent. And then he started his own company that scaled pretty aggressively. And then now he's kind of looking around because he scaled his company, but he's not a very good marketer, but he's a really good engineer. But he's like the perfect spec. So someone like that, or on the sales side of things, if you spec out a sales candidate, like make sure that they're not job hoppy, make sure that they're hitting President's Clubs. Like you want the NPC to be like the most impressive candidate you know.
Don't send an SMB rep for like an enterprise SaaS job or like, you know what I mean? Don't like show them that you at least are in the ballpark and you have an idea. But
exactly. Or ideally from a direct competitor. Like what I'll do too is I'll get a candidate that looks really good. Okay, they work for X company. Throw that company into Claude. Say, hey, we're the top 10 competitors. Boom. Then there's my list. Send it to all of them. And companies love hiring from competitors. Like that's. I always like to say recruitment. It's not easy, but it is so simple.
Well, you know, and also when the long-term viability of this in terms of branding, if you're a candidate and you had a recruiter that could be emailing you about how great of a recruiter he was, but you were not on the market, let's say. But let's say a year from now you're on the market and you have all these recruiters that keep emailing you about how great recruiters there, but they never send you actual job. And this other recruiter here always sends you jobs, and they're good jobs. Who are you going to reach out to? We're going to watch out to one recruiter, reach out to the ones that's been sending you the jobs. It's like, it's the reason why I was talking about how like recruiting emails, you get a higher engagement rate because you're actually selling like something in hand.
Exactly. Like you have a product, like you have a problem. Here's a solution to your problem, not anything else. Not like, hey, I'm a recruiter. Like, let's talk about it. Like, no, like that, it just doesn't work near as well. So I feel like you always have to have like a very high level of empathy where it's like, okay, put yourself in the hiring manager's shoes. You're getting blown up 15 times a day from recruiters. What would you want to see? And that's kind of how I like the light bulb went off. It was like, damn, if I was a hiring manager, I want to see a perfect candidate in my inbox, nice and short, easy to read, boom. Like I would respond to that. And I feel like if you kind of go through recruitment with that lens of like, how would I want to be treated? What would I want to see if I'm a hiring manager, if I'm a candidate, just kind of like put yourself in their shoes and this job gets a lot easier.
The one thing I like about NPCs as well is I like to send out these landers, right? So you send out an NPC, maybe a lander where you have some information about the candidate, maybe a video if you talk about how great the candidate is. And what I found as well is if you track your link clicks and you see people clicking that link, then call the ones that are clicking the link. Granted, you don't tell them that you saw them click on the links, that'd be creepy, but calling them knowing that they've seen it, because like I said before, like a lot of folks won't reply to you because they don't want to get involved in a sales conversation. They don't need something like that, but they're curious, but they're not going to reply to you quite then. But call them. So actually, that leads me to my next question. Beyond just NPCs in general, for most people that build a desk, even the ones that live largely in email and LinkedIn, they still say cold calling is a prerequisite for building a desk. Would you agree?
I'm an example. You don't need to. I've made a cold call in probably 5 years. I personally hate it. Like some people like it. If you like it, do it. It is pretty good. I don't like it at all. I find it's just pretty low leverage because it'll take you. And I'm also one, like if I do make cold calls, like it's very targeted where it's like, I know there's a hiring manager. I know I have a perfect candidate for them. Like I just have to go hold of them. So like in that case, I will. But the people that are doing like 40 cold calls every single day, you can do it if you want to do it. Have at it, it can help. But I just find it's low leverage on time because you can spend all morning. 40 cold calls will probably take you all morning easily, especially for the research side of it. Or you can get an email marketing tool like I use Apollo, for example, and I can send 10,000 emails in like 5 minutes. So I find, and honestly, it's probably best to do both. Where I call it like the sniper approach and the wide net approach. Sniper approach would be direct cold calling, research, like this is the right person, so you can like confidently follow up with them a lot because it's like I have a solution to your problem. So like that's the cold calling aspect, and it is quite effective, but it's just quite low volume. Like even if you're grinding, you could do 100 cold calls a day, but that's grinding. And then you can also have the other end, which is the wide net approach, which is send 1,000 emails in 5 minutes. And what I find a lot of what BD is hitting the right person at the right time. And with the wide net approach of just kind of like more mass scale, like 1,000 emails rather than 100 cold calls, you'll just kind of create your own luck. Where the amount of emails I get back of saying a hiring manager saying like, "Oh my God, Ken, I just got out of a meeting and they were yelling at me about how bad I need to like hire this person," and then your email popped right up. Like whenever you have a higher volume like that, you're gonna hit the right person at the right time and just kind of create your own luck that way.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about that. So in terms of like the tools that you use, you're talking about like email, using Apollo specifically, and imagine probably like linked automation to a certain degree as well.
I don't.
So it's really just all email then for the most part.
Yeah, all email. If I do use LinkedIn, but that's more targeted. I don't do the automation part of it.
Okay, but so you're already on LinkedIn targeted. Now, are you doing like any content to LinkedIn, or are you pretty much just like an outbound machine when it comes to
what on LinkedIn content? You said?
Yeah, content. Do you do any of that, or is it mainly?
I need to do more. I do a bit, and they actually do quite well whenever I do post. But I need to do more, but not too much.
I got you. Okay. All right. So let's talk about when you actually get into a client. All right. So when you get into a client, you get maybe your first position. What are you doing there to actually expand that out? You talked about like getting in and working on all their positions, right? And get to the point where eventually you can move to like an RPO model or like a rolling retainer model. So how do you get there? So when you first get a client, like what do you do to actually separate yourself from all those other recruiters that are likely getting in there too? Like what do you do?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to go back a little bit on, because I feel like there's a decent point to make is I'm big on testing my clients really, really quickly. Like I almost give everyone a shot, unless I get really, really bad vibes on the intake call. I basically give everyone a shot where it's like, okay, they're at least giving me some of the right, like they're saying some of the right things. Like I do believe like they value this, they really need to hire. So I'm pretty lenient on giving everyone a shot. And how I give them a shot is I'll send like 2 or 3 candidates. I'll spend a little bit of time. I'll try and send them a network, even if they're not like amazing fits. I'll basically just send over like, hey, here's a calibration profile. What do you think? What's off? And I feel like that's a really good tester where if you send a calibration candidate and say like, hey, here's a candidate in my network, like they're close, but they're not perfect. Here's why I sent them. I understand if they're not, but I'm really just looking for what their feedback's going to be. Because I'll send those candidates sometimes to a new client and they'll take like a week to respond or they'll never respond. And I'm like, okay, this is clearly a terrible client. Like, what if I would spend all week sourcing and doing a custom search and then sent them a short list and they just would have never responded or taken forever to respond? You just would have wasted a whole lot of your time. So I'm very big on just testing quick and then with a small little batch, not too much time. And my best clients, whenever I send those calibration candidates, they'll respond typically instantly with really good feedback or maybe even get an interview. That's kind of a good signal for me as far as like, okay, this is someone we're spending time on. And then I guess to go up on to your question, basically it's just doing a good job. Like I find, honestly, the metaphor I like to use with a lot of my clients that are like debating on bringing me on is recruitment is very, you can have a wildly different experience working with a top biller than like a mediocre recruiter. I kind of compare it to think about a high school varsity quarterback versus Patrick Mahomes. Like, yes, you're doing the same job, but Patrick Mahomes is wildly more efficient and effective at being a quarterback. Kind of the same thing with working with recruiters. If you work with a top biller, it's wildly more efficient and effective compared to just someone who, I don't know, is not that good. And so if you do a really good job, like you're really responsive, you're quick, you send really, really high quality candidates, like the world just opens up because everyone has this problem and it's hard to find good recruiters. So if you are good, like now, for example, the past year, I haven't done any email marketing, like almost no outbound new business. It's all been referrals just because of me doing a good job. And then these founders have like 5 founder friends. They're like, hey, they're hiring me too. Kent's great. Use him. And then
you're the one that gets it done. And that's all that matters. They're like, exactly. This guy will get it done.
Just do a great job. And that's like as simple as it is. Like, just be great. Try it. And you have to remember this is a luxury service. I feel like a lot of people forget that. Like you're paying 30, 40, 50, 60K for a fee for this service. Like it's a luxury service. And some people kind of treat it like I don't know, like they just don't try that hard or they're not that responsive or they're not like, they don't have that sense of urgency, but they're paying a lot of money for this. So like you need to send them like not 7 out of 10 candidates, send them like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 candidates, be super responsive and kind of make it worth all the money they're paying. And just doing that alone will help you stand out from 99% of other recruiters out there.
How do you maintain that though? Because that's the thing about we talk about BD tactics all day long, but at the end of the day, like it takes a certain mindset to make in this business. And I know that if you have like a deal fall through, it's hard to maintain not only the BD but also just doing a good job for your clients, right? You get depressed, you get lazy, et cetera. So how do you manage the mindset part of the business? That's
a great question, man. You've got some good ones. I feel like that is something that's so important. That's also very undervalued and underlooked. The mindset of recruitment is so important because I've probably worked throughout, I guess, with Tima and then my last firm, like hundreds, 200, 300 easily different recruiters. And I see a lot of, like, I think the recruitment industry in general has like an 80% turnover rate. Like most people don't make it their first year. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the times it's specifically a mindset problem where recruitment is, bad things are going to happen. Like we're selling people lie, people, do whatever, they flake, like bad things are going to happen no matter what, even if you do all the right things. And I find that people, whenever something bad happens to them, they kind of go on this downward spiral where it's like, okay, something bad happened. Okay, they get down on themselves. Woe is me. I'm having the worst luck. Like, and then because they're kind of down on themselves, they get less motivated and they work less. And because they're working less, now even less good things happen to them and more bad things probably because they're working less. And then they get even more, demotivated and kind of this downward spiral till they crash. What I always do personally and tell everyone that asks is you have to stop it at that first thing. Where downward spirals are very real, but so are upward spirals. Where something bad happens, I make it a manual effort to, at the very least, maintain what I normally do, but I try and actually work harder. Where it's like, okay, something bad just happened. I need to like double down to make up for this. And now because I'm working more, okay, great, more good things are happening. My motivation is going up. I'm selling better. I have more momentum going, and then use kind of like upward spiral essentially. So everyone talks about downward spirals, but upward spirals are just as real. You just have to make that mental, like manual effort where something bad happens. Do not let it basically interfere with like your normal in terms of volume and output.
Yeah. When you hear that, no, you get back in there as fast as possible. Yeah, I got you on that one.
And for everything, I feel the luck evens out too. Like for every deal that I've had that fell out for some bullshit, which I had one like really 2-3 months ago. I think it was a done deal, and then the candidate got pregnant, and then they're like, "Yeah, I can't start anymore. I need paternity leave." Like it just didn't work out. I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me!" Like I just lost like a $40K deal off this, and then 2 or 3 months later, a deal just falls in my lap from I got a job. I know a perfect candidate. Boom, it worked out. And so I feel like that's something you always have to like keep in mind is like, yes, bad things will happen, but over a long period of time, like for every deal that falls out for some bullshit, you'll get one that falls in your lap. So over time, it works out. You just have to do the same things every single week.
I feel like you can't be successful in this if you're one of those people who rests on like, this should have happened. Like how many employees, they're like, oh, this should have blah, 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 or they're hung up. It's like my wife's got a bunch of employees and like, sometimes they'll be like, here's all the stuff that this didn't happen work, but here's all the stuff that I did. So like, as if you get some extra credit for like trying, but like you still need the outcome, right? You still need the outcome. So if like you think like that, you're not going to do well in it because you're going to be fixated on what should have happened. But like, I feel like if you, not exclusively this, but I feel like it helps if you played sports, because if you get knocked down and you drop a ball or lose a ball or whatever it is that you're playing, like you can't just be like, oh man, I guess the game's over now. No, you fucking go get the ball.
Yeah, exactly. You
have no time to think about that. Like, just
I give myself like 5 minutes to be pissed about something, and then that's basically you're like, okay, something bad happens. 1, can I fix it? Like, how can I fix this? 2, if it's unfixable, what can I learn from this to improve in the future? And then, okay, great, I've either fixed it or I've learned something. Great, now I'm better for it. And then you just kind of keep going on. And it's just so important. Where I feel like in recruitment, kind of life, and especially every sales job, it's you can't control anything external. Like you truly have you have influence maybe, but you can't truly control it. So it's just better just to completely focus on like, hey, what can I input? Like just do the right things over and over. What can I control? Focus on making that as good as possible. And then money, placements, deals are kind of a byproduct of doing that. And that's kind of like a better perspective to have, where it's like, okay, you're in control. You're just doing these things externally. Whatever happens, like, okay, I'm just gonna like accept it for what it is, essentially, instead of like freaking out about it, getting all emotional.
So something bad happens. You work twice hard to get out of the funk and to get that upward spiral back. What do you how do you design your workday, or do you design your workday at all to help maintain that? Like for example, do you block your hours? Do you do deep work in the morning? Do you do limited like what's your method, I guess, for being able to do that work? Because I
find I used to try back in my early career, because it's one of those things that you were told to do, like, hey, structure your days. Like in the morning you do BD, and then the afternoon you do candidate calls, and then admin or whatever. Like you try and structure your day. It never works ever. Like you really can't. Like recruitment is like so free flowing, so fluid. Like you have no idea. Like what if, okay, I plan for my morning to be BD, but what if a candidate that looks amazing booked a call for 11 a.m.? Like, are you just gonna not gonna take that? Like, of course you will. Like that's stupid. You'd be doing yourself a disservice.
Prospect wants to talk at 3 o'clock. Oh, I don't do those calls.
Oh, that's my candidate call. Like, what? You're an idiot. Like, what are you talking about? Like, so I find it's almost a waste of like mental bandwidth to try and plan your days. Basically, my like day plan is from I actually start working usually around like 9:30 to 10. I'm in Austin, and so most of my clients are in SF PST, so like 8 a.m. their time. So I usually start around like 9:30 to 10, and basically my 9:30 to 10ish to around 6:30 is just everything I can do to move the needle forward, which is okay, scheduling interviews, taking intake calls, candidate calls, like just while people are working, just doing everything I can to move the needle forward, moving interviews, all that stuff. And then I'm a psycho, so again, around like 7, I'll start my basically sourcing. Okay, I've moved the needle forward. Okay, now everything's quieted down. Now I need to message candidates that I can talk to tomorrow. So from like 7 to like 11 p.m., a lot of times, sometimes longer, it's just like straight sourcing and then sending messages so that way they respond the next day so I can call them the next day.
Interesting. Okay, it's great to put it. Yes, and I will say for people listening that I can see that working. Although I can see for a lot of folks that are not working in the sense like they need that structure. So I think how do you maintain the motivation, I guess, is probably the best way to put it, because if the lack of a structure, I would imagine you have to be extremely motivated to have like such a chaotic day and still be focused, move things forward instead of getting distracted, right? So what advice would you give if not doing structure? Like, how do you still maintain that pace?
Yeah, it is somewhat structured. Like just try and like basically from your 9 to 5 or whenever you work, like just try and move things forward. That's candidate calls, that's cold calling, that's sending out email specs, that's doing intake calls, that's following up in interviews, doing candidate calls, like everything that is a money making activity, like moving things forward while people are working is what you should be focused on during the working hours. And then after that, like you probably shouldn't be sourcing LinkedIn a ton during like at 3 o'clock, because that's something you can do later and it's completely fine. You can schedule messages for later. So I guess that's kind of like my ballpark structure is like, okay, move needle forward, and then admin and like stuff you can do after hours that doesn't really matter too much. Do it. And you can do it in the morning too if you wanted to. You can do it like before working hours, whatever it is. But just try and like during while people are working, try and move things forward as much as you possibly can, and save all administrative type tasks for either after hours, before hours.
Interesting. Okay. So let's say you lost everything today. You lost everything. You had to start from scratch. What would you do differently to rebuild your book of business? You lost all your clients. You had to start from ground zero.
Yeah, I mean, first step on that is the get clients, right? That's step number one. So I basically do, and if I fucking lost everything, like back in my early career, I did do cold calling. I just haven't had to recently, which is, I guess, within years, which is nice. But if I lost everything, you kind of have to, and you just want clients as fast as possible. So I basically do one, I would find basically some candidate that looked good, that was open to work, get their resume, just basically like, hey, I'll market you out. Like just get one good candidate first. And then from there, I would do cold calls, find out, okay, what company they work for, who are direct competitors, who are competitors that have positions open, I can find a hiring manager. Then I would just reach out to them extensively, like talking 5-6 follow-ups as far as like email, text, call, like everything. And then I also do the wide net approach of like, I'd get Apollo, I'd probably try and send like at least 1,000 to 2,000 emails per week with that candidate. And unless you had really, really bad luck, I'd be shocked if you couldn't get like 4 clients in your first month doing both of those things all day, every day. And then once you get clients, perfect. Now you start testing them, and then you start sending candidates, and you kind of break up your day a little bit more. Maybe you sub out the cold calling for candidate calls, but you still do the email stuff. So you have candidates, or so you have clients coming in rather. So it's kind of just the same thing I did, especially when I left my last firm and then started at TMA / on my own. I had a non-compete, so I started from scratch. Basically did that for 3 months, and then I was all set.
Oh, really? So you left the non-compete. So you had to start. Yeah, you did start from scratch. She left $1 million debt.
Yeah.
You must have really motivated to leave.
I mean, not really. I mean, it was going well. Like literally 2021, build $1 million, 2022, build 1.1 million, was the top performer in the entire firm. And it was honestly decent timing where it was at a point in 2023 where both my big clients at my last firm stopped hiring. Like they're like, hey, we're not going to be hiring at all. And so I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm starting over anyway. Might as well start over. Like I've kind of always had an inkling to start a firm myself. This is a pretty good time because I'm starting over anyway. Like might as well start over and do it for myself and get paid like 3-4 times as much for the fees I bring in. So yeah, then in 2023, started up basically from scratch, non-compete, whole thing.
Excellent. It's a hell of a story, man. Really hell of a story, and I really appreciate you being here to show us what you did. One thing I wanted to mention here is, well, you have a course that's coming out. Yeah,
it comes out June 1st. I've done a few other podcasts, and I always get tons of LinkedIn requests and people asking me about, hey, do you offer one-on-one coaching? Like, I need help. Like, I'd love basically to be handheld by you and like have, like, I guess, actually like custom, like, I guess your experience for my situation. And after enough of those, I'm like, okay, I need to give these people something essentially. So June 1st, it's starting. Applications are live to apply for the coaching. I'm only going to do probably 15 slots for the first cohort, but apply to that and happy to hop on a call to give you more detail. But that'll be starting June 1st. So to get me to handhold you. And what I like to say is, I don't see a world if I'm handholding someone that they don't win a bunch of clients and do, their first deals within, 2-3 months of starting. Recruitment's one of those things where I've said it before. It's not easy, but it is very, very simple.
It's not rocket science, no.
Yeah.
Well, so if you want to learn more, go to his YouTube channel. So it's youtube.com, and your handle is Kent. Is it
Depwe? Yes.
Depwe. I remember Pew Pew.
There's
Yeah.
a town in New York that's Depwe, but it's EW.
Yeah,
So,
apparently it used to be spelled like that too, but they changed it for some reason, and now it's really confusing.
All right, Kim, I really appreciate you being on, man. It was a really good show. Kind of on the shorter side, but lots of good stuff here. Lots of good stuff. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with that are watching? Anything that maybe any final thoughts going into the rest of the year?
I would say, because I feel like a lot of people get into recruitment and they think like this isn't a good industry. There's not a lot of money in it. Like I'm so far away. Like this is so hard that I want to get out of it and go into something else. Something that we haven't really talked about is I think recruitment is a gold mine. It is so underrated of an industry where you can make tons and tons of money actually quite quickly. Like literally last year I did 1.1 million in fees, and then Timo takes their part, but made like 800K last year. I'm making more money than like surgeons just sitting from my desk remotely, making a few calls. And I'm 29 years old. Like it's such a great industry where if you actually do the right things and truly try and, basically follow the right frameworks, you can make a ton of money in it. And you're also not ever that far. Like in 2021, I had 3 clients that I won within a period of like 2 months that completely changed my life. And those 3 clients I did $1 million with. And one of those clients I did like, I think 600K with. And so something to kind of like, I guess, keep you going is you're really only 1, maybe 2 clients away from completely changing your life. Where I feel like a lot of industries and a lot of people just kind of think like, oh my God, I'm so far away from making a lot of good money. But in recruitment, like literally 1, 2 clients can change your life. So it's something that's worth sticking with. Frankly.
It's one of the great things about this business. I love this business so much.
I love
this business. It's one of the most frustrating businesses in the world, but also one of the greatest in a lot of ways. Well, Kent, thank you very much for being on, man. I really, really appreciate it. All right, well, that's everybody. Again, if you're watching live, make sure you comment live. Watch the replay, comment replay. Give us a like. Give us a hate. We don't care. We just need your emotion for the good old algorithm. So hit it. Share the show with everybody to know, and we'll